to From the Sickbed, a podcast on all things disability, queerness, and more. I'm Sun.
And I'm Lavender. And from our sick beds to yours, we welcome you to join us and get comfy as you listen in.
We've returned! We've returned. First, let's acknowledge the bullshit that has gone on to keep us from recording this episode for the past, I don't know, I feel like it's been at least like 2 or more weeks.
Several weeks, yes.
Several weeks, yeah.
Much fuckery has been afoot.
Much fuckery. Oh my gosh, we've been battling flare-ups, the Hurricane Milton.
Yeah, you were in the hurricane. I was not in the hurricane, thankfully.
But you were taking on water.
But I was the one with my apartment flooding and leaking from the ceiling. Ironically. Yes, and I was dealing with all of that and my apartment basically becoming a construction zone.
Terrible.
Yeah, there's been a lot going on. The October slide.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I started feeling that early.
Yeah. We're here. We made it. Against all the odds, we're here.
Take that, life. Okay. So I wanted to start this episode off with a question that I've been sitting on for the past few weeks. It doesn't have to do with our chosen topic, but I thought it might be good to get both, well, mostly your response for the episode because it's disability related. So you know how I had a medical appointment recently with a hematologist, right?
Yeah.
So while I was there, you know how when you are a new patient, you know, they have to do the whole intake thing and like, even though I filled out this whole ass questionnaire online, they still made me answer almost all the same questions again before actually seeing the doctor. And the last question, after all the nurse went through all of them, she was like, "Can I ask why you're in the chair?" And at first I didn't know what she meant. I don't know why. Because I don't know why. My brain's just like, the chair. I was like, oh, my wheelchair. I think because I call it a wheelchair, not a chair.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, she asked me that, and I got so tongue-tied because I never know what to say, really, because it's not like a straightforward answer. Like, I can't just be like, I don't even know. Like, yeah, like, I don't know what to say without going like super in depth, and like listing all my symptoms of like what stops me, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember what I told her. I tried as best as I could. I think I said it was a mess. Even Michael was like, he pointed out that I was just like jumbling my words. I think I mentioned like pain and weakness and just like symptoms and stuff. And she asked me, I think she asked me like I didn't have any paralysis or anything. And I was like, no, just other illnesses. But yeah, so after that, you know, after a medical appointment, you're like processing everything that happened because it's really hard to process in the moment. And it was bothering me that I didn't know how to answer the question, because it's not like the first time I've been asked that by a medical professional.
Yeah.
And I've like kind of come up with little scripts for other things, but for some reason I haven't nailed down a script for that yet. And yeah, I didn't like feeling like on the spot and like not knowing what to say, because then I'm like, oh, well, what are they going to think, you know? So I wanted to know if you have an answer that you always go to when you're asked that. And if you don't, you know, like, yeah, why?
Yeah.
And, yeah.
I do have an answer, but first I want to say it's I think this is kind of more, it's more difficult to answer in a medical setting for one, and also even though you were in a medical setting, it wasn't actually like relevant that she asked that question at that time. Like it is, I've had genuinely had a lot of medical professionals just ask me out of curiosity, not when it's relevant to the reason why I'm being seen at all. And it feels like it's more valid for a medical professional to ask than just like a random person, but sometimes they are literally only asking for the same reasons a random person is. Not always.
Mm,
Of course, there's like appointments and situations where it is relevant and they may be asking for that reason, to get a better picture of like your overall health or your case, or
yeah,
just your medical history as a whole.
yeah,
Um,
that's so true. I hadn't even thought of that. Like, I was there for my anemia.
yeah, right, exactly,
She
exactly.
really didn't need to ask me that. I thought maybe she's like just wanted to be thorough or something. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, like I've been in so many appointments where it's totally not relevant, and I think to an extent they do just feel curious. They're medical professionals, so they in a sense may know more than just your average person on the street if you're responding in a more detailed way, but not always. Because and all this is where I'll tell you how I usually respond to this. So I actually do have a kind of script for this because it has come up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And usually I just say, especially if it's more just, I know, like a superficial like answer they're looking for, like in a case like that, versus like getting into my complex medical history and everything. I'll just say something like, yeah, I use a wheelchair for my many chronic illnesses and diagnoses that really impact my fatigue and pain levels, and my ability to walk without falling. I'll give more examples of like I won't usually say the diagnoses again unless it's like they need it for my health history or for that reason in that appointment. Then of course like we could talk about it. But and when I've been in like PT, might say like I need it because of my dysautonomia and MECFS, and I have post exertional malaise, and I cannot walk safely or without falling, and like describe some of like the risk factors for me walking so they understand my
Yeah,
limitations. But again, that's most, even of like your just average medical professional, all of that would be too much for them. They probably would not know what I was talking about actually, unless that's their
yeah.
field or their specialty. Um,
I think I might have tried. I think I tried to mention that like I'm not officially diagnosed with POTS yet, but I'm like in the
mhm.
process, and pretty much all my doctors think I have POTS. Um, but yeah, you're right. Like I don't even need to really say that unless
Yeah.
it's relevant. I like I like that, like being vague enough, to like
Hmm.
giving enough information and then be like, oh okay,
Yeah.
and then like move on.
Yeah. And I have had some doctors again who were purely curious, who wanted to ask more questions. Just because it's a medical professional asking doesn't mean you need to like really get into things or even say your diagnoses. Especially like I'm assuming, was that, or was this in like the waiting room or in like the little room, the exam
It
room?
wasn't. Yeah, they took me to a little room first.
Okay.
So yeah, I wasn't around other people.
Okay. Yeah. I was
That
wondering.
would have been like,
Weird.
do I have to talk about this here?
Right. Yeah. So even in that setting, an urgent care doctor was like asking me that. And I was there just for like, because I had a fall, need to make sure my wrist wasn't broken. And he's like, why are you in the wheelchair? I guess could be relevant because I fell out of my wheelchair. So, I answered, said like, yeah, I have my chronic illnesses and everything. I have small fiber neuropathy. I have extreme pain. I'm a fall risk, blah, blah, blah. Like gave him the basic rundown, like my scripted answer I give most everyone. And then he kept pressing and he's like, well, are you sure it's nothing autoimmune? Like, have you had an autoimmune panel done and all this stuff? And I was like, dude, we're not here for that. And also, like, you don't think yeah, we've done all the testing you can think. Like, and I was like, no, like, these are my diagnoses. And I said it again. And I was like, don't have anything autoimmune. It tested negative, blah, blah, blah. Um, and yeah, eventually he dropped it. But like, really, this was just his curiosity as a medical professional, and not even really as like any of my main medical professionals. So
Yeah.
it's okay to not give a detailed answer even to medical professionals.
No, you're so right. Yeah, and I wish I had thought of that in the moment. And this is why I want to talk about this because yeah,
Mm,
like I hadn't even thought about like the obligation, to
yeah.
answer. Yeah. What the arrogance of that urgent care doctor though.
Right? Like,
Like did he think he was going to solve your
I
problems?
was like, my
Like
doctors I've seen for years, like, barely know what to do with me. And you think you're
yeah.
gonna figure it out in like 5 minutes?
Like okay, dude. Okay.
But yeah,
But yeah.
it's weird. It is weird because you do feel obligated, of course, in that scenario. So I understand why you were like a little like flustered, or it's like uncomfortable, or just you don't know what to say or how much to say. Yeah.
Yeah. Cuz like if it was any other like a random person that I didn't know and off the street and they asked me that, like I would not feel obligated to answer at all and I'd just be like none of your fucking business. But because they're in a little nurse's outfit or the doctor coat's on,
Yeah.
whatever, I feel like I have to explain everything, even though a lot of it is like unknown. um,
Yeah.
yeah, I like the idea of not really listing the diagnoses, but maybe like the main symptoms. I
Mhm.
feel like especially saying like you're a fall risk.
Yeah.
I feel like they might see that as more legitimate than like I'm in pain all the time.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. That's why I like
because
to
yeah,
say
like
that, because it gives a very clear picture of the risk and exactly
yeah,
what has happened and could
yeah,
happen if I am made to walk. So it gives a very like clear like set of limitations, and in their mind they're like, "Oh, I really shouldn't be making this person just walk." It's actually a risk. Like, they can't just leave you walk unattended if you're a fall risk, like,
yeah,
legally, medically. And then if they need to know more practically, like, can I get on this exam table, they might ask, like, can you transfer on your own? And I'll be like, yes, like, for my case, at least I can stand and transfer on my own. So I might tell them
hmm,
that if that's relevant. But yeah, they don't need to know your whole medical history, and giving a few like just keywords, I think, can help give them a picture.
yeah, yeah. That's a really good way to think about it. And I feel like I need to actually like write a script to
Mm,
practice. I probably won't like remember the whole thing, but
yeah.
it's always helpful to have some sort of like default in your mind.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like not only am I a fall risk, but like I feel like I mean obviously you and I see the legitimacy in our other things like it walking does cause more pain and
Yeah.
it does cause more weakness and all these
Hmm.
things. Um, and yeah, like I've never fallen so far, thankfully, but I definitely could and I almost have.
Yeah.
Um, and I I do think I've gotten more confident in like standing by my limitations in terms of like
Mm.
them asking me to do things. Like she did ask if well, she was asking about my weight and stuff, and I was like kind of ballparking it, and I was like, I don't know, like I
Hmm.
don't weigh myself.
Hmm.
Not only because I don't want to, but like I don't think I could stand on the thing long enough, the scale long
Yeah.
enough. And she was like, oh, like we have a scale out there if you want to do it. And she was like, she asked if I was able to, and I was just like, nah, let's not.
Yeah.
I might be able to, if I had Michael like propping me up, but like I don't want to, so I'm not going to.
Yeah, that it's valid to not want to be weighed either, specifically for so many reasons. I primarily don't want to be weighed because of my history with disordered eating, and I
Yeah.
opted out of being weighed even before I started using a wheelchair. But it is a huge problem that almost no medical offices have wheelchair accessible scales. So people who are
Mm-hmm.
unable to stand um, cannot get weighed. And that's actually a huge problem. And even in medical offices, like most medical offices, like they don't
Yeah.
accommodate for that at all. Their exam tables too, like most of them
Mm-hmm.
are not accessible, don't even lower a lot of the time. Some newer places have ones that do, and that's helpful. But um yeah, so I don't get weighed either usually, and I always guess, and I don't weigh myself, and I just tell them I don't weigh myself. Like they
Yeah.
and they're just like, I think when they've asked, I've been like, I'd rather not. Is it necessary? And when I say is it necessary, it's not most of the time.
Yeah.
They're like, no. And that's that. So yeah, it's really good just to be clear about your like limitations. I did have to be weighed like once before I got surgery, and then it
Yeah.
was
That's
necessary,
understandable.
right? Because for the anesthesia and everything, like they do
Yeah.
need to know exactly how much you weigh and all of that. So and I did it then. They had like bars at least to help, like
Mm.
you could hold on to it, and the nurse was like, you can hold on to those bars like if you need, and that helped with it. But yeah, it was just like, yeah, you can just say what you can't do, and if you can't transfer on your own, like I can, but if you can't, you just say no, I need assistance transferring. Like just be
Mm-hmm.
clear about um what you can and can't do.
Yeah. 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 I'm glad I asked this
It's a good question.
because yeah, and I'd be really curious to hear what other wheelchair users do in those situations, like if they have a script or if they also like get tongue tied.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it like maybe there are some there are people with other answers that could be helpful to other
Mm-hmm.
people.
Yeah.
So if you do have a script, feel free to put it in the comments wherever you're listening, and or message us even.
Yeah, we'd love to hear it. How would you answer why are you in a wheelchair coming from a medical professional in a medical setting, even whether it's relevant to your case or not?
Mm-hmm. I would even maybe split it. Be like, what would you say, or how would you answer that question if it was relevant and
Mm.
if it wasn't? You know, because those two might be very different from each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah, like I was saying, like when it's relevant, I get into my specific diagnoses and which exact symptoms lead me to needing
Yeah,
the chair. And when it's not, I don't go into all of that. So yeah, totally.
yeah. But you have to be strategic with your words. So yeah,
Right.
and everyone puts their words together differently. So yeah,
Yeah.
I would like to know.
Yes.
Okay, so now we can get into the topic.
Yeah. Today's topic.
Do you want to explain, start us off?
Uh, I I could try.
Are you still feeling foggy?
I am high, everybody. I am high. No.
I said foggy just in case you didn't want to say that you were high,
I
but
know. That's
okay.
why I was just like, it's fine. People can know. I smoke weed. The horror. Kahlo. Ugh.
Last episode, I was the one too high, and now it's Lavender.
Yeah.
I think you're worse than me, though. I think
uh
you're more like silly, like giggly high, and then last time I was just like no thoughts.
yeah. Yeah. This strain of weed does that to me. It's pretty good. Very good for pain relief too.
Mm,
But Yeah, so speaking of being distracted and being high, that's part of our topic for today. Is like how Sun and I both use distraction to cope with our chronic illness lifestyle life. What are words?
It's
Life.
a
It's
lifestyle.
a lifestyle, okay?
I did not choose this lifestyle. Thank you.
Yes, but yes, how we use distraction, being sick and disabled at home, and being home a lot, or being like in Sun's case, primarily bedbound. Me being primarily housebound, but I go back and forth on how much I can leave the house depending on my energy levels. But yes, home a lot with not a lot to do and not a lot we're able to do.
Yeah. I have a lot to do, but a lot that I can't do.
Right, right. Well, yeah, not a lot we're able to
Yeah.
do. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Distraction, I would say, is my number one like main way to cope
Mhm.
with my illnesses, and also, anything else going on in my life. Could be personal.
Mhm.
Um I lean on it a lot to not get so overwhelmed with whatever's going on, whether I'm in too much pain, physically or emotionally. And yeah, aside from dissociation, which I kind of, they're a little different, I think maybe under the same category, but distraction, for me, it's more in the form of I watch a lot of TV, uh,
Mhm.
a lot of TV. And when I have more capacity, I like to play games, listen to music, stuff like that.
Mhm.
And both of us, have a lot of distractions, I feel like, in common.
Yeah.
Um, One of those being horror, the horror genre.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. I use a lot of this the same distraction forms and do it for the same reasons. When you're in so much pain constantly, it really helps to immerse yourself in something and not have the pain be so present. And even like you said, even for life circumstances, and for me, like dissociation and distraction, yeah, I think they're kind of in the same like realm. For me, dissociation is a little more like tu- tuned out, but it can also involve tuning in and like maybe dissociating through tuning
yeah,
into something else.
yeah, like
um
getting lost in something else.
Yeah, and even before I was majorly sick, like for my like trauma symptoms, especially, I use TV as a major like coping mechanism to kind of transport me away from like whatever triggers or like flashbacks were just like constant in my mind. And then now being sick, like yeah, it really helps to be able to have something I can just be totally immersed in. And for me, that's like you said, TV, games if I'm up for it. For me, listening to music or playing music, like me my like playing music myself and playing piano and singing like really helps. I can really block everything out when I do that. And my cat. She also helps.
That's always helped.
Yes. Yeah. And then horror. Oh, we just both love horror so much.
Yeah. And it's October.
Yes,
It
Halloween's
is the
coming up.
horror month.
Right. It is the season.
That's Yeah, that's what like. October is just Halloween month in my mind.
And it can't be done any other way because what are you
Mm-mm.
doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess we could talk about why horror is so appealing as a form of distraction,
Yeah.
and then I would like to get into our personal favorites, um,
Yes.
and also maybe if we've been watching specific like shows or movies this month, especially.
Yeah. Yeah, why horror? Mm.
I feel like you can explain it more eloquently than I can.
I did write something about this. I've really thought about it a lot. And I also like kind of wrote a little bit about it in preparation for this episode. But horror as a genre, I find like goes into some very deep and complex experiences just with being alive and being human. It touches the depths of those things in a way that other genres just don't, particularly when it comes to things that are like painful, fearful, traumatizing, like really excruciating elements of existence, and whether that's portrayed through like a human going through it or even like creature. I find like a lot of like creature or monster horror gets into those like I don't know, sometimes in being chronically ill I have felt like not human. I'm not gonna lie, like sometimes in my experience
Hmm.
as a disabled person I genuinely feel not human, whether it's because I'm being dehumanized in a situation or because of like how intense and debilitating my symptoms can be at times. And yeah, like in horror, people experience injury and loss and grief and terror and like facing their own mortality or the mortality of the people around them. And that to me just speaks to what I go through more than so many other things.
Yeah, same for me. I don't know if I'm going to be able to articulate this as well as you did, but when I was thinking about it, it kind of reminded me of more so when I was growing up and like really depressed. I
Mm,
mean, I still get depressed, but it was more like intense and like, yeah, just really dark. And I listened to sad songs, you know, and it wasn't too, like, it wasn't making me sadder, you know, it was more like, how do I explain this?
it like
Kind of like
hits.
I just wanted something to mirror what I was feeling and going
Yeah.
through.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be a way to, well, I don't know. Maybe for some people it could be a way to process the pain too. But yeah, for me it's more like I'm not doing this, like I'm not going to listen to happy music because it's not going to change anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um so like with illness stuff, like when I'm really going through it, when I'm in a lot of pain and I need a way to escape that, at least for a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like horror is like my go-to for that because anything else is just not going to even touch what's going on in the first place,
Mm-hmm.
and it might make me feel worse, like
Yeah.
seeing like a regular, I don't know, like a rom-com or whatever other kind of movie, if there's like quote unquote normal people living normal lives in it and just dealing with like petty drama and shit, I'm just gonna be
Uh-huh.
like, fuck this. Like I don't want to watch this right now.
Yeah.
I need something that like mirrors what I'm going through in a way that is also like a distraction from it, because it's obviously it's not the exact same. I'm not watching another sick person suffer.
Right.
I'm watching people being chased and murdered by
Mm-hmm.
like monsters or like evil spirits or you know any other thing that's going on. And um yeah, it can be, in a weird way it can be comforting as a
Yeah.
sick.
Yeah. It's less so like see, like you said, it's not really seeing someone who's in exactly the same situation as you, but more so for me it's seeing people emotionally go through things that on an emotional level I can relate to.
Yeah, it's not like we enjoy that or anything. It's my like, it's kind of like whatever we're watching, the show or movie that we're watching is kind of like, and the characters, you know, in it,
Mm-hmm.
are kind of like sitting with us in the pain we're in, even though it's not the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it could be a way to like even feel a little less alone in whatever we're feeling, you know. My relationship with horror has definitely changed since becoming chronically ill.
Same.
I've always liked it. I started getting into horror like as a teenager, but back then it was more for like the adrenaline rush from like being scared and, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um that type of thing. And like I would never like watch, well, most horror movies I would not watch by myself.
Mm-hmm.
It was more fun for me to like watch it with a friend, or
Right.
you know, it was more enjoyable that way. But now I rarely get scared by the things I'm watching, and it's more just yep, I'm with you, guy. Whoever is getting chopped up right now, you know, whoever's
Mm-hmm.
mourning like their dead friends who just
Mm-hmm.
got like, you know, it's just
Yeah.
like it's. I'm not even getting scared anymore. It's more for the comfort.
Yeah, I had a similar like development too. I have always enjoyed horror on some level. I did enjoy watching horror movies back in the day, but very similar to what you said. I usually was watching it with other people. I used to watch like American Horror Story with my friends. I would go to scary movies with my friends, or like have a scary movie night and like watch something, but it wasn't like something I watched all the time, and probably wouldn't have watched it alone like you said. But it was weird. It wasn't even a conscious thing. At some point, I just started watching horror shows by myself when after I became chronically ill, and I was like, this is hitting. This is like
This hits the spot.
yeah, this is the spot. I was like, give me more of this. Yes,
I need
please.
more bloodshed, please.
Yes. Yes, more abject horror and just complete disdain for the fact of being alive and dealing with terrible
Yeah,
circumstances that are completely out of your control. Yeah, sign me up. I can relate to that. Fucking, that's my
yeah,
daily life.
yeah. That's like not even that scary to me right now.
Right, right.
Yeah, that's so funny. I feel the same way. Like, I don't even know if I could enjoy watching horror with someone now. Unless it's like you or someone who like has the same relationship. Like,
Mm,
I always watch it by myself. And part of that's because Michael hates horror. He's a little scaredy cat.
mm,
So he doesn't want to watch it with me. But even if he did, I don't know if I could take some like watching it with someone and someone like getting scared or being like, ah, you know. I'm just like straight faced, just watching, just taking it all in.
hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. I do sometimes watch horror movies with my partner. Like we just watched A Quiet Place Day 1,
I watched that
and
recently too.
we've seen this other horror movie called Run that actually had a wheelchair user in it. I think I told you about it. I don't know if you've seen it though.
I haven't.
But yeah, it's a horror movie with a wheelchair user, and it's like played by an actual wheelchair user, a disabled person, and she does a really good job in the movie. And like her being a wheelchair user is like a part of the it's a part of the plot. Her disability is a part of the plot of the movie too, and but in a
Hmm.
really interesting way. We watched that too. But I realized I just told him the other day, I was like, I've watched all of these horror shows and movies without you. Like you when I was talking about this episode, I was like going through all the names. I was like, you haven't seen any of these because they're mine. They're mine.
Hmm.
Like they're it's like just for me. And I need to
Yeah.
like really be I just want to be in it in my own way. Like
Yeah.
I cuz I'm just relating so hard to it usually when I'm watching and like really empathizing with the characters or whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's like I want to be like sucked into this world without any distraction from watching it with someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I also watched A Quiet Place Day One, not really recently. It was like when it first was available online,
Mm.
which I don't know when that was. But yeah, I'd actually rewatched the first one, knowing that that was going to come out, and then I watched the second one, and then I watched that one.
I
Um,
haven't seen the others. I've only seen day one.
really?
Yes, even though I know they
Oh
came out
wow!
a while ago.
Oh shit! That's
Yeah.
surprising.
And I want to watch them in not the order they came out, but in like chronological order. So technically, day one is
Mm,
first. So I was going to watch them based on that.
yeah, technically, the second one does also show when it first started, but it's not the whole movie. It like jumps time.
So should I
So yeah,
watch the second one next or should I watch
no, no, no. You should watch the first one next.
Okay, so we watch the first one
Yeah,
next and then the second one. Okay, that's what I'll
yeah.
do. But yeah, yeah.
Did you watch day one knowing that the main character was sick and dying?
I did not know that before I
I
saw
didn't
it.
either.
Mhm.
I did not either. I actually had no idea what was going to happen.
Mhm.
Purposely, like I didn't look into it. I'd only seen like a few like previews and stuff.
I only knew it had
But yeah, when I was
cats.
watching it, that's why.
Yeah.
Oh my god, the whole time I was watching the movie, I was like, I swear to God, if something happens to this fucking cat, I'm gonna
Mhm.
lose it.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, that was a surprise when I first started. Like,
Yeah.
it was first starting, and then it was interesting because I think that might have been the first movie I've seen, like a horror movie with a character like that. And it was cool, but simultaneously, it was hard for me to watch it because, like, I
Mm.
can't help but put myself in that situation.
Yeah.
I mean, at least that person, like, she was still walking and running and stuff
Right.
before, like, things got worse.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, like while I was watching it, I was like, oh, I'm dead within like the hour. Like,
Right.
that was me. Like, there's no way. But it was still cool because I could relate to, what she was going through and like being in pain and like,
Mhm.
obviously the fear of like fucking alien monsters like killing everybody.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting portrayal because it really depicted her as like the bitter cancer patient, and that's a
Mm,
portrayal that we don't get to see too often, and done in a way where it's not like, I don't know, like trying to demean her character or her personality, but it almost made her like more suited to that environment.
yeah, she was badass.
Right, because she was so like tired of being in such a highly controlled environment and being told what to do all the time and having your agency taken away because like not only are you dying, but like she was in hospice, and
Hmm.
those kinds of facilities are like very controlled and
Yeah,
restrictive, and you
they have
know
a schedule and
yeah. And like I'm surprised that she was able to have her cat in that like facility. I was like, oh damn, like they were letting her have her cat. um, but yeah, and in a sense, she got to regain some of her like agency through this like unforeseen disaster happening,
yeah,
and all of a sudden being on her own, and she was like really good at being on her own and with her cat, you just her and her cat, like she was really good at that character.
yeah, yeah. I want to say more, but I don't want to spoil it for anyone.
Yeah.
But like, if you've gone this far and you don't want to get spoiled, just like maybe listen to this after you watch the movie.
Yeah, minor spoiler warning, so if
Yeah.
you can fast
Well,
forward.
I was just gonna spoil the end, like right now. No, I was just gonna say, like, she got to die on her own terms
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
which is a big part of it. And I also liked how the guy, I forget his name, but like he could see how headstrong she was,
Mm.
and like she was gonna do what she was gonna do, and for some reason that was like comforting to him. Like he felt safer with her, the sick dying cancer patient,
Mm-hmm.
than on his own, which also I think added like very different. It was a very different dynamic, than in other movies.
Yeah. I thought it was a really good dynamic in the movie because he turned out to be an incredibly compassionate witness to her pain and to her suffering and her illness. Like she, even though they didn't even have to say that much, like when he read that poem, I was crying. Like when they, like he was crying, I was crying. We were all crying during that part of the movie. But he was like, they actually shared in that, and it's, you could tell like he didn't want that to be what happened to her, but he also didn't deny her that like other people
Hmm.
had previously. um and there was something else. Oh yeah, I was thinking about how less so about their dynamic, but it was like she was able to get as far as she did, and to survive the way she did because she didn't have anything to lose. Like other people were naturally, freaking
Yeah.
out and like screaming, and they're like terrified and they don't
Oh
want to
my god.
die. And like he was kind of like that person too. He was very,
Yeah.
very afraid, especially when they first met. And she just I think why he stayed is she had this sense of calm. She was so
Yeah.
calm and rational and grounded because she was like, well, hey, I I mean,
I'm dying
I'm
already.
dying already. I can have a quick way out whenever I want, rather than a prolonged slow death, which he
Yeah.
had been going through. And really, she mostly cared about getting her cat. Like for that was her.
Yeah.
There were two parts of her like salvation, or like really like, because even though she died, in my mind she had her victory. She got her
Hmm.
cat to safety. She got to go
Hmm.
see where her dad performed and connect to that part of her past and her childhood. She got to eat the pizza, and then she got to go out on her own terms. Like,
Yeah. That's a win.
yeah, that's a win.
And
That's a win.
she got to save her new friend.
And yeah, and she got to save
Like she
her new
literally
friend.
saved him. He would not have
Hmm.
made it if it wasn't for her.
Yeah, she saved him, and he saved her cat, and yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I hadn't talked about that movie with anybody. So like talking about it out loud, like I feel like I'm appreciating it even more now. You
Mm,
know? Yeah. That's a good movie.
yeah,
Yeah, definitely watch the first one next and then the second one.
will do.
And do you know anything about those?
I don't know a lot, but like I know, for instance, like in terms of disability, they're using sign language, and I don't know if they used any like deaf actors or not. I don't know that
I
much, but
don't know if the actress is deaf herself, but yeah, like her character is deaf.
her character is deaf, and they use sign language in the
Yeah.
movie. Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
that and again, it's the disability used to their advantage. So,
Yeah. It's pretty handy when
hmm,
the monster can't see but has like supersonic hearing.
hmm,
Yeah.
yeah, interested to see
Um
those.
what else? Well, actually, I wanted to mention how like for me personally, I can't watch certain horror movies. Well, I guess I
Mm-hmm.
can, but like they're not as enjoyable for me
Mm-hmm.
if the evil or the monster whatever is like just a person, you know. like a
Mm,
regular person who's just like wearing a mask and killing people. Like, yeah, that's
yeah.
scary, obviously. Um, but I don't know how to put it into words exactly, but I feel more drawn to and connected with the stories that have like supernatural beings in it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, could be anything from like vampires to evil spirits to witches, you know, like all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that adds to the escapism for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, because when it's just a regular guy who's just like, I just want to kill people, it's just like, okay, I guess. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's just
I
not
feel
as
the
enjoyable
same.
to me.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same. That's the exact same kind of horror movie, whatever, like genre, subgenre that I don't like is just like slasher. I would put those all kind of under like slasher flicks
That's what it
slash
is. Yeah, I couldn't think of that
um
term.
just movies where the point is gratuitous gore and violence. Like that is
Mm-hmm.
the point. The point is the gratuitous gore and violence and like some demented white man serial killer figure like it always is, you
Yeah,
know? Like,
yeah,
that is not really my type either. And like I I don't find them to be that scary. The characters, like, you know, classically always make really bad decisions, and I don't feel bad for
yeah,
them usually. And it just makes me mad. And it's just like, I don't really like excessive gore for the sake of gore.
yeah. It has to have meaning.
Right. For me, I want it to be a little more like, it has to be connected to
Yeah,
the story. And that's not like, there are definitely like some horror shows or movies where there's gore as a part of it that I've watched
yeah,
and I've enjoyed, but not where it's like that type of just, you know,
yeah,
slasher movie gore, hacking off limbs, like kind of thing. Like I
yeah.
don't like those.
I will admit when there's a good like I don't know, like head chopping or yeah, gore, sometimes I'm like, "Ooh, that was good. That was a good stab right there."
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I I just recently watched I'm trying to watch horror movies that are older that are like really well known that I haven't seen before.
Mm.
Um and a lot of those are slasher movies.
Yeah.
But I recently watched I Know What You Did Last Summer.
I haven't seen that
Have you seen
one.
that one?
Mm-mm.
Okay. I've heard that title before, and I knew it was like I don't know if it's a classic, but it's well known.
Mm.
So yeah, I was looking for something to watch, and I came upon it. I was like, oh, maybe it's good. And it was one of those. It was a slasher, and like
Mm-hmm.
basically the serial killer was like just a dude who was angry, and and the characters are making such stupid
Yeah.
decisions.
Yeah.
It was so infuriating. Like I like these are the movies that like I'm actually talking to the screen now and I'm just like
Yeah.
why are you doing this to yourself?
Uh-huh.
Like you know a serial killer is out to get you and you're up on a balcony by yourself in the dark.
Or
Like
in the middle of the woods in a car making out alone in the dark.
yeah.
Or in the shower with your front door unlocked. Or you know, like any
You don't have a weapon on you at all times? Like what are you doing?
you don't carry a machete just like ready to go.
Grab a kitchen knife at least. Damn. But yeah, those so that was like I like well actually I also like mystery. So
Oh,
when
same.
that one, it was a big mystery of like, who is this serial killer?
Mm.
And I was trying to figure that out. But once I figured it out and I was right, and I was like, and I just kept watching it. Obviously, I'm going to finish it. At the end, I was just like, that's it? Okay. Like, they could have done so much better. But yeah, it's way better when there is something deeper going on, something more sinister going on. I recently rewatched The Fall of the House of Usher.
I haven't seen that one either.
You
I
haven't.
started it. I couldn't get into it for some reason.
Same with me the first time I watched it. I just kept going.
Mm,
The second time I watched it, it was way better because I don't know if it's like the autism, but I feel like the second time I watch something, it's better for me because I know more, I guess. Like
yeah.
I've processed it. I don't have to try to process while it's going on,
Hmm.
because that takes like some energy and then
Yeah.
I'm like, "Wait, what?" But yeah, it's actually very good.
Hmm.
Um yeah, I really recommend. It's not like my favorite from that director. I forget his name, but he also did like The Haunting of Hill House, The Haunting of Bly Manor. It's the same dude, and he uses a lot of the same actors.
Interesting. Yeah. I would
But
think
it was
I
a
would like
very different kind of story, which I
it.
liked.
I'll have to try it again. I'll have to give it another shot. I do enjoy any type of horror where there's like a mystery element, or I'll watch things that maybe aren't like, maybe they're not technically horror. It's more like a psychological thriller. But I like those types of movies too, where
Like more suspenseful than horror.
yeah, where it's more suspenseful than horror, and it's maybe like part like detective mystery, finding the bad guy type of show. I do enjoy those too.
Yeah, I really like that aspect as well. I feel like I've gotten pretty good at figuring things out before it's revealed.
Mm,
Um, so like that's always something that I'm doing while I'm watching. I'm like looking for clues. I'm being a detective, literally.
hmm.
And what makes me really like certain shows and movies is when they do it in a really creative way where I don't figure it out when by the time it's revealed, or like I thought it was something but it turns out to be like adjacent to that, but like I would have never guessed. I really respect those.
Yeah.
um I hate when it's really obvious what's going on.
Hmm.
There are also some that I feel like they're kind of like trying to bait you into thinking the more obvious answer
Mm.
when like really you need to be thinking deeper. So that helps my self esteem with my intelligence when I get it right. I'm like, ah, I knew it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just gonna like name some ones that I think like I felt were good in terms of like disability. Maybe even if the character isn't explicitly disabled, or if they are, or it's like very relatable in terms of disability. Obviously, Midnight Club. So that's a really good one for disability.
A lot of representation.
Yeah, lots of disabled characters with like varying levels of disability too, and the way it's like integrated into the plot as well is really nice. And I was also going to say there's so many, but I think weirdly another one is Midsummer for.
I haven't seen that.
Oh, you haven't?
Mm-mm.
Specifically for like trauma and mental illness, but
Mm,
like the main character, without getting into it, is basically like a trauma survivor.
mm,
And like the movie starts with an extreme trauma happening to her, and it kind of like, in a weird way, I mean, it like fucked up stuff ends up happening without giving it away. But
mm,
like the way she's kind of just like going with the flow, and it seems like she's in a dissociative haze for a lot of the movie, and that kind of like leads her to getting into, you know, less than ideal circumstances where you might actually be in danger and you're not even like able to recognize it. I
mm.
definitely relate to that as a trauma survivor, because like when you've been through something like that, you're just your frame of reference for what is unsafe or safe can be very skewed, and you can be more open to manipulation and things like that. So it's that one I think does kind of touch on that. Um, and then this is very obscure, and I'm sure you have not heard of it, but there's a Turkish adaptation of Frankenstein, but it's not
Mm,
a literal adaptation. It was so interesting. It's called The Creature. I think it's on
okay.
Netflix. I'm not sure, but it's I don't want to give it away, but I kind of need to give it away a little bit if I want to talk how it relates to disability.
Okay.
But
I don't mind.
I mean, the main element of Frankenstein is this like
Yeah.
monster creature being created, Frankenstein's monster,
Hmm.
and the monster in this and Frankenstein, who's the scientist, right? There's both those characters, but it's the way it was portrayed. I was just like, that quote unquote monster. That's just a disabled person. He's just like
Mm,
the literally like the circumstances that led to his creation, which was much more ambiguous than Frankenstein, like the original. And it's like the way he acted after this transformation when he becomes this quote unquote monster, like he's just disabled, but he's in a setting where people don't understand disability.
mm,
And I could not unsee that, and I couldn't watch it without like watching it through that
yeah.
lens. But even so, it was still so interesting. It wasn't. I have mixed feelings because of course he's treated horribly. He's treated
Yeah.
terribly. But also many disabled people had the same exact treatment. Especially this was set in a
Yeah.
previous time. This was set like in an
Mm,
earlier time too. Um, Especially in times like those.
yeah.
And like the amount of degradation and abandonment and humiliation he had to go through was very difficult to watch when I was watching it that way, thinking like this is just this is a disabled man. And also it kind of like depicted two extremes the treatment disabled people do face, and not to an extreme when you think about the way that disabled people were treated in the past. It was just I didn't expect going into it to relate so much and specifically with disability,
Yeah.
but and maybe other non-disabled people, maybe that part like maybe they missed it, maybe to them they
Yeah.
interpret it that way, but
You need the disabled eye
yeah,
to
it was
catch these
interesting for
things.
that.
It
And
sounds really interesting.
yeah, I just had never seen any other like show even related to that. And another one I thought of that isn't like straightforward disability. Have you heard of iZombie or have you ever seen it?
I think I did see some of it a long time ago.
Well, it's not really a it's not a spoiler, but the main
Hmm.
character is a zombie. And weirdly
Hmm.
enough, like when watching it, it's almost like she's just disabled by her
Mm,
zombieism because she's still the point of the show is she's still trying to like live her life.
yeah, she's still her
And
herself.
right, and she's still herself. She's a zombie, but she's still herself. It's not like other zombie, shows or movies where the zombie's like not human anymore. Like they lose their personality, they lose their
Yeah.
memories. So she's still herself and she still has her job and she still has like relationships and friends, but like she's disabled by it because she can't do certain things and she has to make sure that she has to get brains or she starts to struggle about she has
Mm,
physical symptoms of not getting brains.
yeah.
Like it's like
That's her
right,
medication.
like she gets sick. Like she will
Yeah.
start, having all these like terrible side effects if she doesn't have it. So in that way, it's like it's kind of like she's disabled.
Yeah.
So
I could definitely see that. that sounds relatable.
And it starts to cause
Yeah.
problems in her relationship because now her partner can't relate to her being a zombie and doesn't understand every
Mm,
part of her experience anymore when they used to be like so connected and on such a deep level, and they start growing apart. Like it's
damn.
yeah.
That sounds pretty spot on.
Yeah. hmm
Yeah. Well, maybe I should watch it again.
I would recommend that. It's a good and it's for being like, I guess technically in horror, it is a lighter
Yeah.
show. It's not like other horror shows where it can be more
It's not
intense
scary.
and actually scary. Yeah, I wouldn't. iZombie is not actually too scary or
Yeah.
really scary at all.
From what I remember. Yeah, that's interesting. I can't really think of any that I've seen that, like, I directly associated a character who, like, wasn't meant, wasn't written to be
Mm,
disabled, but, like, pretty much is. I'm trying to think. I don't know. But that would be interesting to see how many are like that. I feel like you can create a whole, like, subgenre with that
I
sort of
mean,
premise.
so you've been watching Dead Boy Detectives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even for characters like in that show, I forget the lead, what her name was, the living girl who's the friend. Was it
I
Claire?
literally just saw it.
It wasn't
Is it
Claire,
Claire?
was it?
I think it's with a C.
I
My
always
memory.
I can't
I
remember.
literally just saw the show. I can't
Yeah, for
remember.
me it's been a while, but you've been watching it. It's okay. Whatever her
Is it
name
Clarissa
is, mm, I really can't remember.
or Marissa? I don't know. I remember Jenny is hot as fuck. Okay,
We'll have to look.
that's all.
We'll look it up later. But characters to me who have like extra sensory abilities, who can like maybe who are like mediums or can see ghosts, talk to spirits, who can like sense supernatural phenomena. I also kind of interpret them often as disabled in a way because I can relate to it because like there's always those scenarios in those like shows where it's like the person's like talking to someone and no one else, they're like talking to themselves. So people just see them talking to themselves and maybe they're like doing weird things or like reacting to things that aren't there. And they're kind of frequently burdened by their abilities. So it's like it can be exhausting or tiring to use those abilities and like they need more rest than other people, and that's like a part of their, not always but in some depictions of it, that's how they portray it. I kind
Yeah,
of would include that too, as far as like characters that you could interpret as maybe they're not canonically disabled, but
yeah.
you
There's
can
similarities.
interpret it as that way.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good point. I guess I'm not really looking with that sort of lens, but yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, some are more like obvious than others, or like more relatable than others. But yeah, I looked it up. Her name's Crystal.
Crystal.
I knew it wasn't Claire,
It
but yeah,
wasn't Clarissa, but it did start with the
it did
sound.
start with a C.
Yeah.
I was right. I don't, yeah. Um, yeah, that show is really good. I hope it gets renewed for another season.
Me too.
I think you could say. Mm, I'm trying to think of like what you said about her character. Could it be similar to the experience of the two ghost boys? Because they also have a lot of limitations as ghosts,
True. Yeah.
and I don't think. I mean, yeah, it is kind of different because with Crystal, like you said, her abilities, like she could overdo it and it like negatively affects her physically.
Yeah. I also have mixed feelings. Like when I was saying like the relating to creature horror, I do have mixed feelings about like tying creature horror or non-human creatures to disability,
Mm-hmm.
because like I said, like I myself relate to that and can see non-human creatures, in this case like ghosts. They're not human, the two ghosts. They are, but they're kind of not.
They're
Like a
post-human.
vampire is like looks like a human, it's not a human. A spirit that looks like a human
Right.
is not a human. An alien, even an alien that looks like a human, is not a human.
Right.
um Zombies aren't technically like human,
Mm-hmm.
those kind of characters. Like I have so many mixed feelings because it's it's not by accident that we relate disability to those types of characters.
Mm.
Because if you're thinking about horror as a genre, specifically creature horror, like dealing with those aspects of humanity that are like grotesque,
Mm-hmm.
undesirable, outcasts, existing outside of the norm, and kind of like representing something that is hated or despised. A lot of times the characteristics that are given to the creatures or monsters in the genre, like they are characteristics of disabled people if they are not outright just disabilities. Like look at the Hunchback of Notre Dame. That's not horror, but like
Mm-hmm.
it just to say a character that was like portrayed as like,
Yeah.
a monster that is actually just disabled. And that's in so many of these instances where it's not accidental that in the genre like that has been an attributes given to these monsters, because for a long time that is literally how like humanity saw disabled people. That's how disabled people were viewed.
Yeah.
And we were seen as something to be eradicated, something that
Yeah.
was a threat to quote unquote civilized society, a threat to just the status quo, a threat to progress. And even like the way a lot of horror like deals with asylums. I'm rewatching Ratchet right now, which I really love as a show.
Mm.
But it is asylum, and it's like
Yeah.
these horrors shows that take place in asylums. That's not fantasy. That's literally just
Yeah. It's based
how
on something.
that is how disabled people were treated.
Yeah.
That is based on actual things, and I think that's part of what makes it very unsettling. But when you're watching it as a disabled person, you can't help but see the way it's connected to our dehumanization. And so I do feel conflicted about it, but I relate to it and I like it as a genre, and I probably relate to like creature horror some of the most,
Yeah.
out of all horror. And it's very nuanced, it's very complex, and in terms of disability, it's complicated.
Definitely. Yeah. I think being able to relate to characters like that, it's understandable. And it's also understandable to like that sort of thing because you are kind of like seeing yourself in something. That doesn't like negate that they can definitely be problematic,
Mhm.
and some are worse than others for sure.
Yeah.
um I was thinking when you were talking about that, like asylums came to mind,
Hmm.
and also more like visibly disabled people in terms of like, limb differences, like,
Facial disfigurement or facial
yeah,
differences. Yeah.
disfigurement.
Hmm.
I was thinking of American Horror Story. Is it Freak Show? It's called Freak Show, right?
I don't think I watched that season.
Oh, really?
Mm-mm.
Okay. I watched it a long time ago, like before I was sick,
Mm.
and I thought it was pretty good. But that is a pretty good example of characters who are obviously different, And like they're human. They're not even actual creatures, but they're
Yeah.
treated like that. And it's like not a coincidence that the concept and like history of freak shows are commonly like intertwined with disability. But even like actual creatures or monsters or whatever
Mm-hmm.
that I'm trying to think of examples, and like it's really hard for me to think of examples off the bat for like tomorrow. I'll be like, oh, I just thought of some. Um, but yeah, I don't really know how I feel about them because I don't know. Maybe I'm just not watching the same things exactly, or I'm just not
Mm-hmm.
watching them with the same point of view
Mm-hmm.
because that strong like connection or like I guess kind of like kinship
Mm-hmm.
with like creature horror, at least consciously, I haven't really experienced that a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, maybe we're just watching a lot of different things, or I'm just seeing it differently. But yeah, the examples you gave, like I can definitely see that for sure, and why that would on one side be like likable because you can relate, but then also those characters are not treated well, so it can be hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was actually something that was in the creature as well. He finds a home in the circus with other outcasts and they're other just disabled people, like little people. It would make sense for that season of American Horror Story to like just have disabled people in it. Like we know disabled people were a part of circuses and freak shows because it's
Yeah.
one of the only places they could get actual work, especially that era. But at least in America was also the era of the ugly laws when it was
Mm,
illegal to be visibly disabled in public and you could be institutionalized. It was probably for a lot of people one of the only ways they could remain uninstitutionalized and like actually have some ability of like freedom of movement and community and livelihood, like making money. But yeah, I think it's also like in some ways when like the creature is kind of just like unambiguously like not related to disability, you're supposed to be seen as disabled, that's fine too. Like I don't think we should always relate those sorts of characters to disability, but yeah, I also get just relating to it as far as like what that creature represents and the emotions and relationships. But yeah.
yeah, I definitely think it can be even dangerous to like immediately see like creatures in horror as like disabled people. But yeah, like you said, when you yourself can relate to them, or like they might not be written that way, but it can be maybe interpreted that way. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that as a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other thoughts on horror that you had?
I would love for people to suggest any like shows or movies
Oh yeah.
that you think we might like, maybe we haven't seen.
Mm-hmm.
So
That'd be cool.
yeah.
Send us your recs.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm gonna finish Ratchet. I'm rewatching that now.
I tried. Wait, is that the one with Sarah Paulson?
Mm-hmm.
I tried watching that a while ago and I couldn't get through it.
What was the reason? Why was it?
I don't remember. I think it was just like I think this was before I was sick, and just like all the pain inflicted on the people in there, like I couldn't handle it, couldn't stomach it.
There are some very difficult parts of that show
Yeah.
to get through, especially the parts that have to do with like queerness. and
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
the way
I
that
remember that
it
part.
is pathologized in the show. Again, a very real thing that like
Yeah.
actually happened and is real life horror. But though some of those parts of it can be really uncomfortable for me. But I do like it. I kind of like that one more. Honestly, for me, I just like the vintage, like clothes and the settings and like the design. And it's
Oh
a
my
little
god.
superficial. And like the music and just like the aesthetics of it. I love the aesthetics of that
Yeah.
show.
No, I feel that.
And
That's so funny
her
though. It's like I'm watching
outfit.
this really twisted, like cruel, horrific show for the vibes,
I watch
for
it
the
for the vibes,
style.
okay? Like her outfits and her hair are impeccable, and all the women in that show, and I'm just like, ah, like swoon.
Oh my god. That's funny.
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking of it, I think maybe the things I look for in a horror show or movie, maybe I think like subconsciously, because I'm just now realizing as we're talking,
Mm.
I think I don't really like when I relate a lot to the characters or a character
Mm.
in whatever I'm watching. Because for me, like, I'm escaping the horrors of reality
Makes
with
sense.
whatever horror
Yeah.
show or movie I'm watching. And yeah, sometimes there are like relatable characters or like something that goes on that I don't know if I find it comforting, it's just more familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And it could help me get like more into it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think I'm realizing now that I prefer ones that I don't relate to anybody because I'm not trying to think about myself when I'm watching these things, you know? So yeah, that's interesting. It's like we have two different ways of viewing it and maybe also like what we're seeking out
Yeah.
in this broad genre.
I like shows like that too. I like ones that I don't actually relate to. I think the ones that come to my mind though are the ones that I
Mm,
remember the most are the ones that I do relate to on a more
mm,
on a deeper level. Not even
makes
necessarily
sense.
just through disability, but just
Yeah.
personally. And yeah, I think that's just why those stick with me. But I do like and watch plenty of horror that ha- could not be like further from my like reality or
Yeah.
experience that I do enjoy as well. But I feel like I'm just not gonna like those aren't the first ones that come to my mind.
No, that makes sense. I think the ones that come to my mind, I'm very like story driven.
Mm,
Like there has to be a good story, and if there's one that's really good, like I can't stop thinking about it, you know.
yeah.
It kind of reminds me of when I was younger and I would like devour books
Mm, hmm.
that had really like if they had really good plots and like storylines and characters, like it just makes it that much more easy to get lost in what the story and what's happening, and like obviously that makes it easy to be distracted
Yeah.
from what I need to be distracted from, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think ones I relate to less personally that have really good stories would be like well, I know one we both like Midnight Mass.
Mm-hmm.
Also Castle Rock, which based on Stephen King, the series.
Mm.
That one
I
is
watched that.
it's so
Yeah.
good. And I don't really relate to it a lot personally, but like I really
Yeah.
liked it.
The
Um
first one, yeah. That was when I was like, what the fuck is going on? And I loved it.
yeah,
I still don't really know what was going
that
on.
one is a good one for like really a really like dense and complex plot and a mystery that it's not like straightforward or forthcoming at all. It's like
Yeah.
yeah.
I cannot recommend enough movies and shows that have been adapted from Stephen King novels.
Anything,
Like,
yeah, anything Stephen King.
yeah, I haven't come across one that I did not like or like I think was done poorly.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably because like he's involved in the production and stuff. At least the ones I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you're into horror or like getting into horror and you're looking for stories that are really complex and just like draw you in,
Mm-hmm.
I'd highly recommend anything adapted from his novels. Specifically, I think one that I don't think I can ever forget that maybe part of me wants to because it was so fucking like, ooh, it was In the Tall Grass.
I haven't seen that one
That one
actually.
is intense.
Dang.
Like, you should watch it. It's
Oh,
intense.
nice.
I want to watch it again. I haven't rewatched it. I usually like rewatch movies that I really liked. And that's one that I'm just like I have to prepare myself. It's a really good. That and The Outsider. I don't know if we've talked about that one.
I don't think we talked about it. I don't know if I've seen it.
It's also it's a creature horror.
Mm,
Um it's fucking freaky. It's creepy. I really like
mm,
creepy horror movies or shows are really good.
yeah. Yeah, I might have to check that one out too. Yeah, anything based on Stephen King, you really can't go wrong. I also feel like American Horror Story is like a classic now, and
Yeah. I haven't watched it in a while
me either.
and I don't know. Like part of me really liked some of the seasons I watched, but then I can't remember which one I stopped at, but I was just like it started feeling more like twisted and gory for the sake of the gore.
Mm,
So I can't speak for the whole like franchise or whatever because I haven't seen all of them.
same. I haven't seen all of it either. I think I stopped watching after like season 4 or 5. Um,
Mm. I don't remember like the orders of things. I definitely watch them out of order.
mm,
But yeah, I think specifically Asylum is hard to watch.
mm,
But yeah, there are some good ones there. It wouldn't be my one of my go-tos though.
yeah.
I wish I could read.
You have to watch Midsummer. That's one you have to watch.
Okay, I'm going to. I don't know why. Like, there's part of my brain is just like, if a really big movie or show comes out and like everyone's watching it and talking about it, I don't want to watch it. I don't know why. I don't know why I'm like this. And eventually I do.
Yeah.
Like, I listen to like really popular albums like years after they came out, movies, shows, same thing. And I'm like, oh yeah, I see why people really like this. But
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah. Hey, I know it's on my list. I know I need to.
Yeah.
I'm dragging my
People
feet.
talked about it for a reason. I'll just say
I
that. They talked about it
know.
for a reason. This one,
I know.
it's just such a good, like, modern horror, but also, like, so atypical for its
Mm,
genre. It really does stand out in a
okay.
lot of ways. And it's so interesting for that, and it's very psychological, and again the aesthetics are so amazing, and again also like unique for just
Mm,
the genre. Like all the aesthetics are this kind of bright, like sun washed, kind of like idyllic landscape, but with fucked up shit going on. So it's such a
yeah.
stark contrast, and there aren't a lot of other horror movies I can think that have that kind of juxtaposition in them. So yeah, I think it's really interesting for
Interesting.
that.
Okay, I'm gonna watch it. I think maybe part of it is like just because everyone's talking about something doesn't mean it's good.
True.
You know?
It's true. That's
So,
true for
yeah.
sure.
I feel like I'll be disappointed with myself if I like go with, you know, what's trending or whatever, then I'm like, ugh, that was a waste of my time.
Yeah, yeah. A happy and safe Halloween to everyone.
Yeah.
And that's another thing is like, I think watching horror, even though I watch it like year round, but
Yeah.
it's one way when you're chronically ill and can't really go out and do things and celebrate in the way some
Yeah.
people do. It's one way we can kind of celebrate Halloween or feel like a part of the
Yeah.
festivities or even just like have a thrill or have some excitement or like,
Yeah.
feel something else. So, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Like, it's kind of a way to feel included without being included.
Yeah.
Because, most people are also doing similar things. Like, I can't dress up, I can't go to a Halloween party or whatever,
Mhm.
but I can watch some horror.
Yeah.
And yeah, it feels even more like, what's the word? Not special, but it's like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing this time of year, you know?
I don't know. It's like a tradition you can partake
Yeah.
in. Yeah.
Why couldn't I think of that? It's tradition. Even though, yes, I watch it year round.
Right.
But I'm trying to watch even more this month.
Yes. Just extra.
Hmm. But yeah, have a happy Halloween, a safe Halloween. Send us any recommendations you have
Mhm.
for horror shows and movies. Maybe even books. I'm trying to get more into reading
Mm.
slowly. Yeah,
I would
that
listen
could be something
to
too.
a horror audiobook.
Yeah,
But yeah.
if like it's narrated well. Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of From the Sick Bed. And a very special thank you to our patron for your support. It means a lot to us. And we'd really appreciate it if you followed us wherever you're tuning in from, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcast, wherever you're listening from. Giving us a follow helps us out a lot, as well as leaving us a review or a rating. That would be very much appreciated. And yeah, until next time,
Till next time.
bye. Toodles.
Bye. This has been From the Sickbed. Thank you for joining us in sickness and solidarity. You can find us at From the Sickbed on Instagram, YouTube, and Substack. Support us by sending us tips on Ko-fi. Take care and talk to you next time.